Good morning and welcome to Political No Brainer, the podcast where we move past winner takes all politics and into real conversation. Today I'm with Tony L, host of Project Third Eye Opened. I'm actually excited about this opportunity to have him on. He focuses on cultural, political, and economic issues shaping modern society. From free speech and institutional trust to masculinity, media influence, government overreach, and the future of American civic culture. This is an important topic because seriously, we are at the precipice of either something great to happen or something bad to happen. We've got a president that's swinging the bat hard in every direction, and we see how the checks and balances systems works with him. One of the things that people are really excited about, I'm excited about, is when I see conservative justices that we all campaigned against as liberals rule in our favor against some of the things he's trying to do. And that just happened the other day. I think there was like 4 times where a very conservative Supreme Court ruled against him. And so we have a good checks and balances system in place. But what I like to jump right into is your point of view, Tony. Tell us what you do and how you feel about things.
First of all, thank you for having me on. I'm always happy, honored, and sometimes surprised that to get invited on people's podcasts. Because my whole point is to just have the discussion. And I want to argue, don't want to go back and forth. Let's just have a discussion and let the chips fall where they're made as far as what the listeners take from it. I think too often in this balkanized area that we're in, everybody's on the blue team or the red team. But I'm on the red, white, and blue team. That's where I'm at, and I wish more people would join me on this ship that's getting more and more vacant, seemingly by the minute. But definitely, I'm excited, I'm fearful, and I'm anxious. As to say, these are exciting times in which we live. I truly believe that I'm not scared because my father is just going to protect me. So I'm not scared of the future. I'm just excited by it because we've never been here before. But we have been here before. There's nothing new under the sun. Empires have come and gone, and this one will too. And I'm just excited that, in a sad way, that I'm witnessing that the implosion, the decay of our culture, of the American way of life, the American empire. As I've done a couple of my podcasts, I've shown the comparison between Rome and former empires compared to today. It's happening. It's happening. And it's eerily similar to how Rome fell and how, if you want to say Greece, but also when you look at even the German Nazis or how the revolution under Mao Zedong, how that happened. That's eerie. If people go back and look at the Communist Revolution and see how that happened, and you see a lot of the same play here, as well as people look at how Rome fell, you see a lot of the play here. It had to do with politicians just forgetting about nationalism and it's all about them. If you look at how we lost our religion, if you look at how the young people just turned against us and just wanted to throw out our history, our past culture, anything old for new that meant nothing's new under the sun. The same thing is replaying itself. As you said, if you don't know history, you're bound to repeat it, and that's where we are. I mean, I know it's just watching how this is going to play out. It's not a question of if it's going to happen the way it happened in the past. We have choices every day in this country to go right or go left. But if we don't know history, we're going blind. And so many, particularly the young, are choosing what's convenient, what's easy, and what is not what my parents did. That's where we're going.
Well, here's my question when you say that, especially what my parents did. Do our kids have the same options as our parents had? Because I don't even have the same options. Back when I was a kid, my parents worked for companies where there was lifelong retirement plans. Now that's no longer the case. You're lucky if you get a partial contribution to your 401k. Used to be a living wage was you put in the hard work and you made a living wage and you made money to buy a home and you made money to put your kids through college. We've seen those opportunities trickle away bit by bit. So when we think of our kids giving up on what society has to offer, what the American society has to offer, is it they gave up or is it they don't have anything to believe in anymore? For example, even small business today. You know, it used to be you could start a small business and ultimately grow that business into something significant, into something where you could pay employees a decent wage. Again, you could share the wealth and grow opportunity altogether. But now you see big business consuming everything small business does. So is it our children gave up on what we believed and what we did and how we did it? Or is there no longer that opportunity?
Well, it's not that black and white to me. People, from my point of view, when I say third eye open, I think people ought to look at context, and the context, based on your question, is very diverse. We have to look at how do we get here. We have to look at first. It's like if you're a child and you have two parents, we have the masculine, we have the feminine. The masculine just tell you what you can't do. The feminine is going to tell you what you can. And depends on what that balance looks like, depends on how you're going to come out as an adult. We have allowed the feminine culture, the feminine ego, I call, to rule for the last 60 years since progressive liberalism has taken over the educational system and academia as well as the entertainment. They've taken over all pillars because the conservatives have said, I don't want to play no more because I don't want to be the bad guy. So we have showed the young people a bill of goods of easy, convenient, comfortable. When you and I growing up, those were not in our vocabulary. Those are not offered in our vocabulary. You had to work hard. You was expected to work hard. You was expected to go to school and pass. You were not expected to go to school and act up. You did not want your parents to be called by the principal and say, come get your child. You did not want that smoke. That is all it is. We have helicopter parents, particularly female, making sure that Johnny and Sally don't skin their knee, unoffended, and everything's gonna work out well. And we have a government political system that is conditioned through socialism and socialist ideas that you could have utopia and it won't hurt. And no, you don't have to pay. It's all fun. But as the kids now get older, they're seeing that's not the case. They're seeing a lot of hard work. And at the same time, they're looking at how the baby boomers, in their mind, had taken all of the sweets and gone home and left them with all of the sour. So we have to look at both ways and look at it in context. So we all are blamed for a lot of it, of how we condition our children to think life is. And that wasn't the case 2 generations ago. We expected to hurt. Now kids don't expect to hurt. So now they're mad because they feel that they have been sold a bill of goods and that's a lie. So you have a lot more young people really wanting socialism over capitalism, even though many of them don't know what socialism is, because when I was growing up, we were taught the three economic institutions, that being capitalism, socialism, and communism. Kids aren't taught that anymore. I grew up in the time of Reagan. Reagan definitely showed what's really different between communism and socialism, because he hated communism and socialism. We're not giving that picture today to our children, so they're able to dream, fantasize. Sweden is socialism, Venezuela and Cuba socialism, but they don't see that part. They think Sweden is socialism, where people get 4 months off, from maternity leave, and they get a whole month of vacation. That's what they see, and healthcare is free, but they don't see the true work that goes into that, because they don't understand that capitalism allows you to be free as you want, but it's going to hurt, and for the work, you got to put some sweat into it. They don't want to put sweat into anything in the day because they've been conditioned that sweat is not mandatory. That's the issue. Capitalism works. We just aren't teaching our young people what capitalism is. opposed to communism, socialism?
Well, to that point, there's a lot to unpack with what you just said. But to that point, now you're actually like essentially singing to the choir when you say that. But the thing is, we're not teaching our kids what capitalism is. And I have said this so many times that we have a K through 12 education system, whether it's a public system, whether it's a private school system, whether it's a charter school system. We've got many options for our kids to go to school and learn their ABCs, to learn their math, and to learn their grammar. What we don't offer and what we can't offer in the regular school schedule, because the regular school schedule is pretty full docket, is how you succeed in a capitalistic society. We have never offered that. And I've actually said on my podcast numerous times we should have these types of understandings, these types of offerings for how to succeed in a capitalistic society online as an option on your own free time rather than playing video games. Learn about the things that are important to succeed in a capitalistic society, and even possibly make it an incentive-based type curriculum where if you accomplish a course on something that will help you later on in life succeed, that will help you buy a house, that will help you buy multiple rental properties or investment properties, that will help you start a small business and actually level it up. Scale it. That will help you buy a small business and scale it. You take these courses online on your own time. You complete the assignments that are there without using AI to help you get through the whole thing. And then you've got some sort of life lesson worth really looking back on. Really something to look back on and grow from, right? Now, we don't offer that. Like, so there's a book from Robert Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He learned from his rich dad certain things. He learned from his poor dad, who wasn't really hard. He's actually alluding to his poor dad was more of a trained professional like a lawyer, but the rich dad was a businessman who knew how to skirt the tax system, who knew how to skirt the real estate system, versus his poor dad, who may have been a lawyer or a doctor. All he really knew how to do is do his 8 and hit the gate as a doctor or a lawyer, collect that big paycheck, but ultimately pay taxes on everything and wind up with a very small portion of what it started out as. So my point being, like you said, that's why socialism seems to be so appealing to young people today, is they have no idea the opportunities that are in front of them, and they have no idea how to capitalize on those opportunities. But so when I've said it, when Bernie Sanders garnered the hearts and minds of 12 million young people, I didn't see that as a success story. I saw that as a total failure, because those 12 million people ultimately gave up on our society as we know it, on our opportunities as we know them. And that was a sad thought for me when these 12 million young people thought the only way to get ahead now is to have free college, to have free health insurance, to have free housing, to have, I guess, free transportation as well. And I don't see that as being a fundamentally successful America. No, I don't. I don't see it. You can say it's fundamentally successful in Sweden, but not necessarily as successful in Venezuela or Cuba. Those are also stark comparisons, because Venezuela and Cuba were pretty much controlled by very strict.
I want to make sure that people don't get it confused. Sweden is not socialist. They're democratic, but they have a vein of socialism. Sweden is not socialist. Canada is not socialist. They're democracy with the vein of socialism,
which identifies as free health care.
Right, it's a huge safety net. Now, Margaret Thatcher said once, it was Reagan said that America at the time was not socialist until we lose control of our health care, which we have. So we have a growing vein, because of the way culture is going, of a greater and greater safety net. But want to make clear that Sweden is not socialist.
No.
Go ahead.
No, Sweden is not socialist, but the thing I just want to unpack right there real quick was, when you think of, we haven't lost control of our healthcare system. We've actually essentially taken some control of it with the Affordable Care Act. What I've always said is the acronym
wait. The Affordable Care Act is socialist.
It's socialist in the sense that it's not affordable, first of all the time, but it's available. So I always thought the acronym was wrong. It should have been the available. If you literally get diagnosed with a terrible situation, with a terrible condition, you can pick up health insurance at a normal rate and carry on with your life the best you can with the disease as it's affecting you. But that is not a socialist program. It does not mean you get free care. What it means is you have an option. Before that, you didn't have an option.
Well, first of all, Obamacare is a socialist system. America has one of the best medical systems in the world. Canadians are rushing over here when they had to wait 5 weeks to get an MRI. So Obamacare took healthcare out of the private industry and put it into the public.
Well, I would have to say what Obamacare did was, in some respects, it offered you an option. But the private sector medical industry is still thriving in America. It is not.
No, it's not gone. But I'm saying what Obamacare did, it took the private industry and made it socialist. That's why he worked so hard to push it through under some very suspicious circumstances. But it is a socialist government takeover of Medicare, of medicine in the United States, because now government has a larger footprint, if someone say foot on neck, on private medical institutions where they did not before. Now, what they could have had done, because the only thing wrong with American medical institutions is the pharmaceutical industry is in bed with the government. If you cut that biblical cord, prices will go down because competition will become more robust. Right now, we don't have competition open enough, especially now, in regards to reduce prescriptions and give medicine cross-state accessibility where individuals can first know how much they're paying and then also compare, is this facility better or state better, then that gives me a better choice. That way, because we have more people going overseas to go get medical care that they can get here simply because of the cost. The cost will go down if we remove government out of the way. That's the only issue with our medical system. Not put government further in bed with medicine, but take government out of bed with medicine.
Well, so what generally happens when we talk about medicine or pharmaceuticals is what generally happens there is American companies, when it comes to research and development for pharmaceuticals, American companies do most of the heavy lifting. They do most of the big spending. They can spend a lot of money on a drug that never even hits the market. So that's a money that's a wash. That's a loss. That's a write-down. If it does hit the market and has an enormous level of success, you always see Chinese companies stealing it, creating a subsidiary of it, or they call it something else, like I forget what they call it, but it's like a generic of it. And they've just stole the research. They've created an alternative, and then everybody's saying it's cheaper here, it's cheaper there. So in a sense, the American pharmaceutical companies are up against a lot. Now, I'm not feeling bad for them, and I'm not saying, oh, let's hold charities for them and let's pay the executives out of our own pockets because they're such great saints. But I am saying, whenever somebody just tries to simplify the idea of we need to just lower drug prices, and Donald Trump did it as president, I'm going to bring down prices 11,000%. We're like, there's only 100%, and that's free. I don't know where you're getting the 11,000% from. I know this is a Trump ideology, and I suddenly have Trump disarrangement syndrome. I'm just saying I don't understand the 11,000% reduction. That's all I'm saying.
He just said that.
He just says the most random, stupid things.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's not reality.
He's just his antics. He's just a showman. You know, people, so I'm going to get a refund for $12,000 the minute I put blood pressure medicine. But so this president has created this image of everything was terrible before I got here, and now I'm fixing it all. Well, he hasn't fixed a thing. What he has done is he's really given a lot of the neocons what they've always been looking for, i.e. the attack on Iran. So many presidents have talked about an attack on Iran, and so many presidents have come to the conclusion it's just not a good idea. Trump just did it and now gets the idea it was not such a great idea. So thank you, Donald Trump, for getting us into a massive quagmire for no other reason than you're an idiot. And thank you, Donald Trump, for presenting options on things that you have no idea on how to deliver. But the reality is that for the most part, our pharmaceuticals, when they come out to shoot, when they come out the production line for the first time, are very effective and often very expensive. But then the foreign companies steal them, create the generics that are half the price, and then everybody says, everything's so much cheaper all over Europe, everything's free in Europe, everything's free in Sweden. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way here in America. And like I said, the only thing the ACA did was not create a socialist medical system, it created an option. That's why we said it shouldn't have never been the Affordable Care Act, because nothing in America about healthcare is always affordable. But thank God for once, at least it's available, which essentially builds on Bernie Sanders' notion medical care should not be a privilege, it should be a right. You do have essentially, you've come a long way to that right for medical care. You can get that medical care if you really need it. I had a friend that got diagnosed with a brain tumor long before the ACA took effect. He had to sell everything just to finally qualify for Medicaid. And just for our listeners to understand the difference between Medicaid and Medicare, aid is for poor people, care is for elderly people. That's how they came up with those terms. So the aid, because he was poor, that he had to get even poorer for, even transferred the title of this old truck he had to his sister. When he got down to zero, he was able to get the medical aid he needed. That would not have been the case, and he died of a miserable death with a pain and suffering from brain tumor was just unimaginable. But that would not have been the case if the ACA were in effect. So giving props to the ACA for actually accomplishing something, for being a piece of legislation that wasn't perfect, but actually accomplished something in this day and age, really says a lot for a piece of legislation that actually accomplished something.
Well, I definitely do appreciate your point of view. I don't agree with that naturally, because one thing, healthcare is not a right. Our founders were very ingenious, but they want to first come up with this. But a right is anything that doesn't take the same from another. Meaning that if my labor is my property, I have the right to not give it away. And I have the right to not have it confiscated. What we can do is come to an agreement where if I choose to give it to you, that's my choice. Or if we could come to an agreement where you pay me for my services. That's what makes our country better than any others, because you see physicians or professionals coming over here because there's no glass ceiling. Like, they can make as much money as they can based on what they bring into the marketplace. So in the medical or any other industry or arena, if I create a widget and I could take my widget to the marketplace and make $1 out of it, that's mine to do. Government nor anyone else can say now that widget is so great, you have to give it to the community for the benefit of the community. No. No, thank you. No, thank you. So when you compare how other countries who have created this area where they give their product away, or they get less for it than what they can on a true open market, that's a problem. We shouldn't have that problem. Our country was designed not to have that problem. If you want see value in my widget, pay me for it. Or if I want to be charitable, I could offer it to you for free, but that would be my choice, not the government's. Medicine is not a right. No constitution doesn't say that for a reason, because that's someone's property.
Well, the only thing I'm kind of alluding to, and I do think if people need health care, they should be able to get it. But I'm not saying it's a right or a privilege. I'm not arguing that point. I was just quoting Bernie Sanders that we got closer to it being more of a right than a privilege with the ACA. I do think when I see a child who has a cold, who has a constant sniffles, and the mother just doesn't have $50 to pay a copay to take him to the doctor to get him whatever the doctor prescribes, a Z-Pack or whatever it is they would prescribe, that would eliminate that coughing and that suffering within 3 days versus the 3 weeks it might take to cycle through.
Well, we have that though.
We do have that more so than ever with the ACA, and it did expand Medicaid. And
we always have that. I mean, there's no one is dying. There's always hospitals, like here in Georgia. We are Grady. Anyone who don't even have ability to pay can go to Grady and get medical attention.
I have seen that in the past. I can tell you that my friend who I talked about just previously, just a few minutes ago, he suffered terribly. You can enter a hospital and say, I'm suffering terribly. They will give you a bed. It doesn't mean they'll give you the treatment that you really need. And it doesn't mean that they're really they will admit you. They can't, a lot of places cannot just not admit you. Right. It doesn't mean you're going to get equal treatment. Whereas if you did have an ACA policy, however lame it is, however low price you decided to pay for it, whatever low level you decided to buy, you are still insured. You're technically insured. And that's all I'm saying is that kind of progress was the right direction for America. I have never agreed with the notion of universal health care or a buy into Medicaid or a buy into Medicare for that matter. I just think we have not seen the decimation of insurance companies, and I've always argued, look, insurance companies do a lot for the American economy. They invest a lot of money. What the premiums you pay is called float. They don't pay anything out on those premiums for years to come. So they take that money and they invest it in projects all over America, real estate projects and all kinds of things that create jobs. It's not a bad system in place. And for the most part, it works very well for the very wealthy and the very well informed. All I've ever said is through our education system, let's make more people informed. Let's level the playing field. Let's stop arguing the point that we hate billionaires and let's get to the point where there's a whole lot less billionaires and a whole lot more millionaires. Because if you spread the knowledge, you spread the wealth. And that's all I've ever said. I've never argued the idea that we should be a socialist society, and I've always argued adamantly opposed to it. I don't believe in socialism. I'm 100% capitalist. I'm very ready to have my own private jet. Obviously, I don't have it. But if I did, I think it was really cool. And if I walked my family up the stairs one day and we flew off to the Cayman Islands or something, I'd be really proud of my achievement that I was able to afford that. But so I have no argument with the notion of success.
Sure. But what I think, and we pretty much are touching on the same thing, it's a lack of education, financial education in our country. And it's done purposefully. As I mentioned, Third Eye Open, there is an orchestrated decline of America. It's not by accident. Because if you and I could have this conversation about it, don't you think people, in the offices and the big fancy buildings in D.C. are unaware of the same problem? I mean, they see educational system going down compared to at the turn of the century. This ain't scientific knowledge or secret knowledge. They see it too. Why are they doing anything about it? Because they don't want to. It's done purposely.
Not only don't they want to, the Democratic and the Republican Party work hand in hand at the greatest petri dish to grow the underclass every year by enormous rates. They want an underclass for one reason. One side of the underclass or the other side of the underclass is going to pick a party. Okay, but the more underclass you have, the more you have picking a party. The more you have a growing momentum for their bullshit. So they work hard to see it that you know nothing. I literally, during the first time Trump ran for president, I drove by a guy who had like Trump flags and Trump stickers and I don't know what else. And the truck was so old, it looked like it was 30 years old. It was bowing in the middle between the cab and the bed. And he had like a pressure washer, a mop bucket, a wheelbarrow, rakes. I'm like, what is Trump going to do for you? How is he going to grow you? What tax break do you need? What you really need is a new truck. And he's not going to buy it for you. And what you really need is to focus on one business. Because I understand you got a lot of things going on, but you can only do one thing at a time when you're the one guy in that one broken down truck.
Right.
So I don't see Trump really helping you. But God almighty, did he believe in Trump? That he's going to make a significant difference in his life?
Well,
that's when I came to the term. I don't have Trump derangement disorder. I have Trump supporter derangement disorder. I think it's just incredible the faith people have in Trump.
Well, people are desperate. What we tend to forget that Democrat Party has been in power in the nation's capital 3 times more than the Republican Party. And Democrat Party's fundamental position is socialist, if not communist, has always been since the days of when Stalin was wreaking havoc in Ukraine. And there's this guy who's working for the New York Times who was praising Stalin's accolades and just lying through his teeth. So the connection between the Communist Party, the Socialist Party, and the Democrat Party isn't anything new. It's just been underreported, greatly underreported. But
and now it's overrated.
More and more. Well, it's not overrated. I mean, it's still underrated because it's still not getting. There's no reason why people should be choosing to be poor in this country. They're choosing by voting for the Democrat Party. Democrat Party, if you look at what's going on in New York, see what's going on in California, people are getting richer. they're getting poorer. The masses are getting poor. The middle class has been erased. In California, so many people leaving because they can't afford to live in the whole state. That's all because of the socialist, communist political system where there's only one party. That's the Democrat Party. I mean, the failures of socialism is not anything new. It's never succeeded. Never, ever succeeded. The founders tried socialism or community living, and they realized it don't work. Because people were saying when they see the field, and they say, okay, we're going to work this as a community. But then Sally say, okay, my back is hurting. I'm too old. So Sally's going to sit up under the tree. And she's going to eat just like everybody else eat, but she ain't going into the field. So Junior and Johnny start looking at Sally and say, wait, why is she getting to sit up there and not put any work in and still eat? I'm going to sit by Sally. And say everybody one at a time go sit by Sally because it says, hey, I'm not gonna be out here and out there in the sun, and y'all sitting over there under the shade, and y'all get to eat too. I'm gonna sit over there too. So you have more people sitting under the tree than you do out there in the field. It don't work, but yet people want to say, I got a good idea now to make it work. It's never worked. But this is what the kids are buying a bill of goods. This like Jack and the Beanstalk. It ain't
Well,
gonna,
they are. It's
the,
not just that they're buying it; it's that they're continuing to deliver a bullshit story on it. So
Yeah.
let's take both governors that you just mentioned, California and New York. Mandami walks into New York with a Democrat governor as the state, with the state's governor as a Democrat. She shifts billions of dollars from the state budget to the city budget. She would not have done that if a Republican got elected to be mayor. They propped him up like this giant success. Now they're saying we have less reporting of crime all over the city. Well, that's easily done. Every chief of police knows the trick. Just don't report the crime. You know, whenever wash the reports, then you have less reporting. I mean, it's not that hard to do. And again, you've got a Democrat as the city police commissioner. So we've seen significantly reduction in crime, reported crimes in the city, reported crimes in the city. Because what did Mandani do? Just say I'm the mayor, and everyone said, "Oh, let's stop committing crimes." No, they just stopped. They just stopped actively reporting what's been reported. So you've got this bullshit story going on in New York. The other bullshit story that seems to grow traction like at an unbelievable rate, even more than Mandabi, is the Gavin Newsom bullshit story. Literally, truthfully, Arnold Schwarzenegger was a better governor of California who had no experience whatsoever in politics. He was simply a better governor than this moron Gavin Newsom. But yet Gavin Newsom comes on TV like he's going to take over and redo everything Trump's done and do it with level of integrity that you've never seen before. The only problem is he's more corrupt than Trump. And the only difference is he's a better bullshitter than Trump. Trump says, I'm a bullshitter. Gavin Newsom says, I got the solutions, I got the looks, I'm articulate, Trump can't even spell his own name. Okay, well, you know what? No one sees through this nonsense, but maybe me and you. But when you look at these two examples of grandiose success in the supposedly socialist, everybody holds hands and sings Kumbaya, New York and California are running like fine-tuned machines, it's all nonsense. I mean, California's falling apart. All the mistakes Gavin Newsom made as a seasoned politician, even Arnold Schwarzenegger, just coming from the point of, I don't know what I'm really doing, learned more as a governor than Gavin Newsom brought in.
Also, I think by throwing names at Gavin Newsom or Madani is doing a disservice. He's not a moron. He knows what he's doing. Just as Madani knows what he's doing. They are following the script of Stalin or any other Mao Zedong. The only thing is that they have a national media that's on their side. So they ain't calling balls and strikes. That's the only thing. And to the detriment of the citizens of the state and the city. Because you see so many people in New York are suffering. And the bill is going to come due. The bill is coming due in California, not to the extent that it will. And the bill will come due in New York. It always does. I think France or Italy wanted to try to soak the witch. That didn't last too long. Because the rich always got options. And the same thing is it's going to come true like a battering ram. Rich and the wealthy got options, and the only one who don't have options are the poor and the middle to poor, and that's going to be the ones who's eventually going to wake up to a nightmare, and then we're going to see what happens.
Well, we're going to see what happens. We can use a real life scenario, and I love the fact that we basically agree on some things. We disagree, but we agree to disagree. But I'm going to give you a real life example of something. I do get excited, and I do use the term moron a little too much. And I don't have any faith in either Gavin Newsom or Mamdani. I do realize what they're doing is very planned and very strategic, and what they're accomplishing is exactly what they want to accomplish. But the average person believing in them needs to really rethink what they're believing in. But here's a real example of Mamdani. He just froze in rent controlled apartments across New York City. He just froze the rents on 1 million units. Okay. So now let's talk about the effects of that. After World War II, there was a freeze on rents. And that's how the South Bronx became the South Bronx, because the rents were so low, the owners abandoned the buildings. So if I say the South Bronx, and I just use that as a metaphorical term, just remember, I think there was a movie about the South Bronx, about how you just see buildings, burned out, empty buildings, vacated buildings. They froze the rents. The landlords didn't pay the taxes. They collected all the rent they could, and then they abandoned the buildings. And you've got basically a whole borough of New York run down, abandoned, a crime-ridden, very dangerous place. They literally have housing police, and when the housing police, what they call is, they are on foot patrol, they call them verticals. They have to walk up and down these buildings, and their life is in danger every time they try to do a full view of the interior of the building. Their life is in danger. They're putting their lives at risk. It's the worst job in the world to be a housing cop in New York City. It's very dangerous. I happen to, as a kid, not really know, but know of a guy that was a city housing police officer that got killed on the job. And this is what you get when you implement a massive rent control policy. But what you get when you have a mayor that implements it and you talk about it like it's genius, that's called propaganda. And we need to get past that. In America, we need to get past that altogether. Because if you think America's above and beyond propaganda, they are not. We are not.
Well, I agree. I agree. I think also, like I said, it comes down to people knowing what's right and what's true, and that is what is lacking in our culture. We no longer have it recognized as supreme being. We're confused on. We're actually having debates on what's a girl, what's a boy, which is insane to me, and would never have happened in my father's time, my mother's time, or 40 years ago. But yet we're having an open discussion, and we have actually politicians defending Johnny over there is Sally, and you must call Johnny by Sally's name, even though he has all the tools of Johnny. So yet you're wanting me to confirm your lunacy, and some people being forced to do that, especially young people, which is a shame, because that's where the bullseye is, on the young people, so it's on the next generation. We started the conversation on young people losing faith in America. They're being conditioned to lose faith on reality, what's right and what's wrong, what's wet, what's dry, what's blue and what's red. That's what, if you could get a society and a person to believe in a falsehood, like a man can have a baby, what else can you not convince him to do, or to say, or to believe? The game is over. Once you have me deny biological science and reality, like saying there's no God, that's where we are. The young people are being targeted. And unfortunately, the fact that we are in a feminized culture where the man is no longer present, masculinity is no longer accepted in the open square, we have femininity, with no bash on women, but we're different. Femininity is a culture and a mindset that always leans towards security above fighting. And that's good when it's married to the masculine side, where it's a balance. And that goes both ways. You can't have a society all masculine, you can't have a society more all feminine. But we have our culture, it's a masculine culture. Capitalism and the mechanism is a masculine culture. Socialism is not. So when you see things going, and you see the child being left alone, and you see the society lean more towards avoiding conflict as opposed to charging that hill, we have a problem. And that's what's happening right now, and that's what's leaving the child undefended because there's no man in the home.
Well, unfortunately, that's something we almost, as community leaders, as political activists, I like to call them social entrepreneurs, we have no control over that. We do have parents that abandon their children, and it's generally the mother that's the one that really cares for them till the end. And that's something we can't change in society. How we could change it again is if we created a society of more successful people and less ultra successful people. So me saying,
well, again, I disagree. I mean, we got here by changing the culture. We got here by saying the man is no longer relevant. We got here by first allowing women to exit marriages with no consequence. We got here by changing the culture, by changing the rules of the game, so we could change the rules of the game again and bring more value to the man in the home. We look at what happened in the black community under LBJ. He removed the man from the home, and we see what happened to the black community. It's not a mystery. If we change the course, it's not gonna happen overnight. But what we didn't get here overnight. Our culture did not become a feminine culture overnight. So to say that we can't change it with surrendering the field before we even take it, that's what I see as a problem. It's not gonna happen overnight, but at least if we recognize that we got a problem and we recognize how we got here, we could change it. At least start to change it, not to surrender the field.
Yeah, I got to just plug in my laptop. I forgot
Sure.
I didn't even. I didn't realize. Battery. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. We do have a lot. I have to say, I might be corrected on that one. We could change some of that course. I do think we do need more active parents, more active fathers in every child's life. Absolutely. And if we can change that course, I fully support it. I do. This conversation has been incredible. And Tony, you've been incredible. And I know your podcast hang on, let me just get it straight now. Your podcast is Third Eye Open. Tell us about your podcast. I'm going to start wrapping it up just because I got
Sure. I appreciate that. Yeah. First of all, I love this conversation, and it's all about having the discussion. Like I said, we're not going to agree on everything, but we definitely agree on most things.
Most things, yeah.
But yeah, so it's something that I think your listeners would definitely enjoy. But Project Third Eye Open is just, again, question. We take so many things just at face value. We take so many things just because of the herd mentality. We take so many things just for the sake of not being unpopular. But when you see something that's a big dog. when you see something initially and say, that's interesting, and then you turn your head and then you look back again and it's something totally different, or you've been told it's something totally different. But when you first saw it, it looked like, okay, that's interesting. Believe that first instinct. I always go back to the assassination of JFK in broad daylight, and then the whole popular notion that the lone gunman. I'm like, wait, his head went forward and then went back. Now, okay, science don't work that way. But Clay, you want to tell me that one guy did that, and then the media says, that's what you saw, But when you first saw it, you saw something totally different. Believe that first thing, and then question. Fill in the blanks on your own.
And that's actually very good advice. And that is very much what Tony's podcast is all about, is ask the questions. Don't just believe the answers, ask the questions and come to your own conclusions, because that's really a big way to get started in the right direction of life in general.
Very much so. So anyone who wants to check me out, definitely go to my website, www.Project Third Eye Open, and that's Project Third spelled out the letter I and open with the ED at the end.com. You'll find all my articles, my blogs, as well as all my, and if you want to go directly to your social media platform, check me out on Rumble video, and definitely check me out on any of the other audio platforms.
Thank you so much, Tony L.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's been incredible. We'll talk again.
Yes, sir.
This is Political No Brainer, the podcast where we move past winner takes all politics and into real conversation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.